Hello, everybody, and welcome to C3 Films. Today, we're doing another episode of It Wasn't That Good, and it's going to be about the fourth Matrix movie. I can't remember what the subtitle is.
Corrections.
Resurrections. I am Cheryl. This is,
Chris.
and we're going to be talking spoilers today. As we tear this movie apart because it wasn't that good. If you haven't seen it yet, I'm pretty sure you don't need to. I don't even get it still. It's almost as if I didn't watch it. So let's just dive right into it.
Yeah. I have a lot of history with this film. This is the first Matrix movie was the reason that I decided to work in the film industry. And then I got the opportunity to work on this particular movie. So I was very excited for the opportunity, and I still am. And the people that I met on this film, for the most part, most of them were amazing. All the actors that you see in the movie, I got to talk to a lot of them. They were all really, really cool. The stunt team was really cool. So what we're about to say is by no means meant to disparage any of the people that spent a lot of time working on this film. But we have to be honest. And we have to be honest about how we felt about the movie. Now, right away, I had a hard time getting on board the movie. And it was predominantly because of the fact the movie opens with trying to be as meta as it can possibly be. Because The Matrix is now a video game trilogy that Neo has created, and they're working. Oh well, it's a video game trilogy, and so my first inclination was to be very upset. But I said, you know what? I believe there's a point, so let me just ride this out and see what they're gonna do. And the moment that I rolled my eyes was when they said our parent company Warner Brothers wants us to make a fourth movie, or wants us to make a fourth game. Bullet time, bullet time, bullet time. Then I was like, okay, I'm already angry now. And then we're gonna keep going. But then the movie continued, and I got angrier. But that was like almost the time I wanted to jump off the movie straight off the bat.
Yeah, I did pick up on that, the whole Warner Brothers thing, and it reminded me so much of Space Jam. Because of how like in your face Warner Brothers is about their movies. Like they like want you to know. It's kind of like what's his name, Jason Derulo. He always says his name like in a song. So I know a lot of artists do that, but it felt a little bit like that.
Yeah.
And then yeah, and I also felt like, oh, they're basically repeating the beginning of the first Matrix, and I get it's like I feel like they were doing it so that they could try to be like, oh, look, it's the Matrix again. Remember this? We're doing it again. But it's for a reason. But I thought it was kind of dumb. Like it went on too long. Like if you're gonna like reuse stuff from the first movie, like don't do so much of it at once.
Yeah, there's a heavy emphasis on nostalgia for this movie, and that seems to be one of those prevalent things that happen for belated sequels to older movies, like where you have this 20-year gap between the last movie to the new one. Like you see it so often. You see it with Star Wars. You see it with The Matrix. You see it with Terminator. They do this all the time where they want you to like remember the good old days, but they have to remember also that they're making a new movie. They're continuing the story, so they have to find a way to continue that story. And one of the reasons I found the meta commentary so irritating is because it did not seem to fit with the tone of the other three movies that came before it. Because those other three movies, while they got you to question your reality, they weren't trying to call out anything. Like they weren't trying to call out Warner Brothers or Village Broadshow Productions when they were making those first movies, because those first movies were intended to be their own world. Like it is our world, but they never wanted you to be like, oh no, this is the Matrix is your real life and everything else like that. It's still a movie that has to exist in its own universe, but it's just that the questions that it posited got you thinking that this could actually be reality. So it almost felt to me like Lana was trying to basically give the finger to the Warner Brothers executives that came to her to make this fourth movie. It almost felt like she didn't want to make this movie, and the commentary that you hear in those sections are basically her dialogue trying to say, yeah, I didn't want to do this because Neo doesn't want to do it.
Yeah. Do you know if Keanu Reeves didn't want to do it either?
I have no idea about that. I'm really not sure, but it's weird when you see like when they have certain dialogue that says, oh, like narrative is dead, and you have these like group meetings where they're talking about we can't make anything original anymore. It's all about cats and everything else like that, and it starts to feel less like you're trying to make a movie where this is how the characters actually feel, and it starts to feel like more like you're projecting how you feel about the current state of movies into this movie, which is supposed to be its own reality. So that set me off. And then the whole thing with the bullet time thing frustrated me because when they kept saying the things like bullet time, bullet time, bullet time, that took me out of the movie once again because for these characters, there is no such thing as bullet time. They're not slowing down reality when they're in the Matrix. And when they're in the Matrix, these characters are moving faster than normal. When you see the first Matrix movie and you see Neo dodging the bullets like in slow motion, the first thing Trinity says to him is, I've never seen anyone move that fast, because they're slowing it down so we as the audience can see what's happening, but for the characters, everything's just moving really quickly. So the movie is just playing on the fact that the audience knows that this is a trilogy of films and is trying to wink at us. And to me, that just does not fit with the tone of the other movies that you've established going into this.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and to be honest, I didn't really remember the second and third movie too much because I watched it like only one time a long time ago. Yeah. But I do remember that they were very confusing, and even those felt like they weren't really supposed to be there. Because it was like The Matrix just seemed like it was only ever intended to be one movie. And I think we all know that, like, as soon as you have a movie that becomes like a series of other movies and it wasn't intended to be that way, you end up with some really botched up stuff that doesn't really make sense because they had to like find a way to like unravel whatever happened in the original movie to continue it, I guess is a good way to say. We had that same problem in Star Wars. When we talked about The Force Awakens, it's basically the same thing that we're looking at here. In my opinion, they basically just, took what was neatly packaged as a solid ending or like a finite ending and then reopened it and made you basically, I don't know, it's just like everything is just undone. Like, Neo is supposed to be the one, right? That was like the whole thing about the Matrix. And now we're like, oh, he's not the one. He's one of two.
He's one half.
Yeah, so it's, well, sure, I guess. If whatever. Whatever, he's not the one. So, and like, that's like the whole thing. It's like, why do we even need the first three movies when you're just gonna undo everything and then say it's something else?
Yeah, and it's really strange because there are things that they propose that I think I could get behind, because when you watch the original movies, it is about love, or like that's one of the things behind it is the love between Trinity and Neo. Neo gets shot and killed in the hallway. Trinity kisses him and it brings him back to life. Trinity dies in the second movie, but then Neo's able to save her life and bring her back to life. And then she's with him in the end in the third movie, right before he goes to the machine, like when they go to this machine city. So there's a part that I could like understand where I'm like, okay, I can see how you're trying to like make it so that they're stronger together than they are apart. But the execution of that just does not work. And we're not even just talking about like just on a story sense. We're talking about on just a production sense for this film. Like there, when you watch the second and third movie, there's regardless of how you feel about those films, there are scenes that stand out. When you watch the second movie, you can think about the Merovingian like chateau fight. When you see the twins and you think about that highway chase and how they built a long stretch of highway and had this crazy like scene that they shot. And it's chaos, but it's organized. And so the problem and then you think about the music, like a lot of times we've been talking about like these sequels and how like they don't add any new music. Like when you watch the prequel trilogy of Star Wars, they add like new theme songs that become like iconic on their own right. When you watch Matrix Reloaded, they didn't just use the same music that they used in the first movie. They actually came up with original soundtracks that stood out for the second and third films. And that's great. That's what you want to do. This movie did not have a single memorable fight scene, and it did not have any memorable tracks that define it for its own being.
Yeah, it just was very underwhelming. And like just going back to the whole thing about Trinity being Tiffany, like the entire time, and then like it basically just became one of those like, oh, I have to save the girl kind of thing, and they made her so weak. Like when you start the very first movie for the Matrix, Trinity was like awesome. She was like the most badass character, and even Neo couldn't keep up with him or keep up with her. And now she's just like some person, and she doesn't even know who she is the entire time until the very end. And then yeah, sure, I guess like she rescues him, but then I already stated my issue with that.
Right.
It's that it doesn't make sense for the character.
No, I feel you there, and it's crazy because like what you brought up about Trinity, like the other thing that the original Matrix movie has. By the way, if we didn't say it, spoilers for the original Matrix movie. Like we're gonna talk about it. If you haven't seen it in the Matrix trilogy, go and watch that. But there's escalation in and threats that you feel in the first Matrix movie, so that you feel tense. So you have all these strong characters. You have Morpheus, you have Neo, you have Trinity, and the trilogy of films predominantly is about those characters. But when you see Trinity for the first time, you see her take on humans and beat them. But then what happens? You're like, wow, she's really strong. Like, holy crap, why is this character so like powerful? Then the next thing you see her running away, and it's because of the agents. So now we've established a hierarchy. Like Matrix people or people that have gotten out of the Matrix are stronger than regular people, but agents are stronger than these Matrix people. So now Trinity just runs, and then we meet Morpheus, who is training Neo, and Morpheus is also strong within his own right. And then we see him fight an agent. So he doesn't run from an agent. He fights an agent, and then he loses. So now, when we get to the end of the movie, when Neo has to fight against an agent, we have seen two of our characters that have been stronger than Neo throughout the entirety of this movie. One ran away and one lost. So now Neo's going to fight. What's going to happen? And that's how you build stakes. That's how you use your fights to also, in these circumstances, to tell a story. And in the Matrix Resurrections, there is none of that. They try to focus on way too many characters, and then none of them end up getting any play. So you don't really know any of them. And then how do you have a Matrix movie where you have all these characters and no one dies? So not only do you have so many characters that you don't even focus on, but none of them even like serve to just add a credible threat to what's facing our characters. So you go through this movie feeling like there are no stakes involved. You don't like, you're not really worried about Trinity dying. You don't think she's gonna die, but there's not even like a feeling that maybe she could.
Yeah, and it's also that's right. I actually didn't even notice that nobody died until you said that just now, and that's really true. And I was actually wondering who the traitor was gonna be, because there was a traitor in the first movie.
Right.
But they didn't even have that, so I was like, oh, everybody's like reliable. But then the other thing that I was confused about, when just talking about setting the rules, the ground rules and everything. So what's her name? The main character that brings Neo back.
Bugs.
Bugs.
Which, real quick, like she also frustrated me because her name is a joke. She says Bugs like the bunny. She has the white rabbit on her shoulder, and then when Neo gets taken out of the Matrix and is on the table, she literally looks at the doctor and says, "What's up, Doc?"
Yeah, that's a total Warner Brothers thing.
Like, why?
Yeah,
But
why?
anyway,
I mean, I thought it
continue.
was fine when she said her name was Bugs, like
I
the
thought that's fine
bunny.
too.
But then then she had that stupid line. I'm like, okay.
Yeah, it's
uh,
it's it's Warner Brothers trying to say, like you said earlier. See, we're Warner Brothers. Look at our properties. So
exactly. I'm
anyway,
surprised they
but
didn't
yes,
have any like other stuff in there. But anyways, so she kept saying that like she saw Neo like walking, or like flying, like she was like cleaning the window and then she saw him. And I was like, how could she have seen it? Like, because she never took the pill at that point, so how could she have seen that? At least we didn't have that really defined for us. So it just felt weird to me that like some window cleaner saw Neo and just always remembered that there was some mystery guy who could fly. Like that just because then all the people who were in the Matrix would basically be like that because they're seeing all this weird stuff.
yeah, it's really strange. Like
What's
I
the
don't want to
point
watch
of
the
the
movie
pill?
again.
Why do I exist?
Right? Like I have to watch that again, specifically because it seems like there was two matrices. Like there was the matrix that was the one that other people were a part of, and then there was like this new matrix, which is like Neil Patrick Harris's character's like rendition of the Matrix and whatnot. And speaking of Neil Patrick Harris, like I think he's a great actor. I think what this movie suffered from was not having a villain that felt menacing enough. And I like that his power set was like really slowing things down. Like I think that was pretty cool. But visually, when you come to a climax, you have your heroes fighting a faceless army. And how is that interesting? When you have someone like Agent Smith and you have like Hugo Weaving who has presence and feels intense, and now we have someone that we can look at and say our main character has to beat him. But the end of the movie essentially is just a giant chase sequence against a faceless army of drones, and that isn't really interesting, unfortunately. So yeah, I like Neil Patrick Harris, but he's not a fighter, and Keanu Reeves is older now, so Keanu Reeves can't even do like the same things that he used to be able to do. And they recast Hugo Weaving's character with this other guy, and I thought it was because he was younger, so he'd be able to do more. But he has the one fight scene he has with Neo. Nothing special happens in that fight.
Yeah, it was really weird because I was like, who's the villain? Cause you're right. I forget his name, but he's an incredible actor. He played like King George in Hamilton.
Oh, okay,
He was in Glee. He's been bad guy
okay.
many
I didn't
times.
know him.
So
This is my first time seeing him.
but yeah, he's awesome. I really like him as an actor, and I really thought that he was going to be the main villain, which would have been fantastic because he's definitely villain material. As an actor. I mean, he could play both ways, but he's been a villain before. And I don't think I've ever seen him play a villain in an action movie, so I was kind of looking forward to that. And then you just kind of forget about him because he only shows up like twice, and then he like they never bring him back. So that was weird. And then you're right, like I didn't really know what was going on with Neil Patrick Harris because he kind of shows up like a little bit later in the game, and then he kind of bows out before the end as well, like you said, because the villain is being represented by drones. And so because you have that and then you have the drones and then you have the other guy, it's like who are we supposed to fear? And who are they running away from? They're just regular people, right? So it's like, and they've been fighting those regular people throughout the movie as well. So it's just kind of very confusing.
Yeah, and it
It's
also is weird because with the way that they do the drone bomb thing, like I get it from concept, that seems cool, but from the practicality of trying to have this Matrix world that's supposed to be our own world, seems a little weird that you just have like you just make a whole city turn into dive bombers to like kill these people. Like in the first Matrix movie and the other Matrix movies, whenever they were in the Matrix, like they would, it almost was like more attention was trying to be had towards not to not like blowing the whole thing. Like you might have someone leap across a building and you have confused people like that's impossible. But at the end of the day, it wasn't just a huge city just becoming destroyed because by like people literally becoming bombs.
mm-hmm.
So and I think that comes from this desire to want to scale up whenever you make the next movie. You got to make it bigger. You got to make it more bombastic. And so you just go loud with big CGI fights and everything else like that. But there's no heart. There's no soul behind these scenes, and you can feel it. And that's the biggest issue that I have is that like I can think back, and to be fair, I've seen the first Matrix movie a lot of times, but I can think back and I can think of the crew in the first Matrix movie, and I know their names even though they're not all significant, but I can't really remember the names of the characters in this movie.
Yeah, I couldn't even remember Bugs Bunny.
It's the easiest one, right?
Right. But yeah, and like the action in general, I just felt was very underwhelming, even though they were taking out all these big stops and stuff. Um,
Yeah.
and it kind of felt like you're right. Like in the first movie, they spent a lot of time like running away. In this movie, they're just like, let's go over here and look for so and so, and and like yes, it's going to be dangerous, but we'll be fine. And then they end up like there's just like one scene where they all go together and they're like fighting in this like wooden stairway, and it's all 1-to-1 combat. So uninteresting because it's literally just like they're just standing there going huh 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 huh, and then it's like that's it. And I was like, we had to watch this for like 5 minutes. They're not even doing anything cool. They're just
Nope.
standing in this one room, not even really, it's not even an interesting room. And they're not even using like the scaffolding or the stairway to, their advantage in the combat. They're just standing there fighting, and it was pretty boring and awful.
And you would think that they would use that as an opportunity to try to get you to see like the different styles and the different ways that these different main characters are fighting. Because like when you think back to Neo, Trinity, and Morpheus and Trinity have signature moves. They're almost like fighting game characters. Morpheus loved jumping into the air and coming down with his knee. Trinity loved going into the air and then doing the kick. Like she opened the first Matrix movie with that move. And then she does that move throughout the rest of the trilogy because that is her fighting style. So they find ways to give people signatures that feel like them so you can identify them with a fighting style. So you would think in this moment where you have all these characters fighting, we'd find some way to see their identity through their fighting styles, but you're right. They're just huh. It's very boring. There's nothing interesting about it. And I think one of the biggest travesties this movie has is that you took somebody who is an older actor like Keanu Reeves who can't do the same martial arts that he was able to do before, and you didn't even give him the John Wick treatment. You didn't even find something else that he could do well and still make it look cool. Like even your gunplay isn't cool, which is something he absolutely has proven himself capable of doing. And that is not even thinking about your younger actors who could do more of the cool stunts.
Yeah, and I don't know. Like you're right. I really thought someone was gonna die in that scene because everyone was fighting 1-to-1, and it was supposed to be like oh, we're walking into danger thing, and then nothing happens. Like nothing
Mm-hmm.
happens. Like I don't even remember how they got away or whatever,
No,
because it was
it,
so boring.
yeah, exactly. And though all those actors are all like Sense 8 alums, basically everyone you see is from Sense 8 that's on that ship. And I like those actors, and I like Sense8. And yes, it would be sad to see them not be able to work in a movie in the future, but you sacrifice stakes for the family reunion that you wanted. That I guess Lana wanted this movie to be.
Yeah, pretty rough. I really wish,
And
like, or, I thought, I guess I didn't really know what to expect when I went, into this movie because I didn't really remember the second and third one. All I
yeah,
really remember is that they just kind of had everything, like, tied up. I knew that Trinity died. So I was really just kind of wondering where it was going to go from there. What I really wish that they did was, especially since Keanu is, older, I understand, like, I would get why they would make it so that he can't be the one anymore. But I
right.
don't think, like, the way they did it was the right way. I feel like it should have been passed down to someone. I was really hoping that it would have been passed on to Bugs and that she was able to, like, absorb whatever he had, like, whatever power that Neo had, and then became the new one so that there's always a one. But, people are gonna die. So I thought that would have been cool. Like, that would have been a cool way to, like, pass the torch to the new generation. Um,
Yeah. Or you know what? And to be honest, I think what I would have preferred more is also maybe just get rid of the one, or maybe make it so that we have to like maybe the one is a baby, and we have to like protect the one. But I I'm actually okay with them taking the one out only because the one is really powerful, and as we've seen with things like Superman or Captain Marvel, when you make a character too strong, it becomes hard to like have stakes for them and stakes for the situation. And the hierarchy of power, seeing like agents and having that fear of them again, I think is interesting. And to see and to know that no one beats agents, and then to see a character that does without them having special powers, but to have them like be smart and cunning, that to me is more interesting to see. And I think that's how you make a more interesting fight, because the people that we're rooting for are the underdogs.
yeah, and like honestly, to me, how I felt is they basically reset Neo to zero by having that whole memory wipe and everything that he's been taking the blue pill. Um, and so I was like, oh, that's their way of giving Neo flaws, like resetting him back to zero, which I thought was kind of a cheat. Like that just felt so. It's worse than Ray having no flaws
Right.
in Force Awakens, because then
Yeah.
he can't do anything, and it's like, but he already learned everything. Like he already went through the journey,
Right. Yeah,
and now
and
we have to watch him do it again.
that's the first thing also that that writers will do when they're trying to make a powerful character less powerful is they take away their power because they realize they already reached the pinnacle. Where else do you go from there? So we'll see where they make Captain Marvel too, but there's a good chance that she's gonna lose her power, or there's gonna be something where she can't like access her powers for whatever reason, because that's usually what writers decide to do when they write themselves into a corner for such a powerful character. Um, so yeah, and I just really briefly, because we are going to start to come up on time, and we'll continue talking on our Twitch channel, but I want to briefly talk about Yaya's character of Morpheus. And while I like the concept of the AI becoming the AI working with humans and stuff like that, and having a place that they can function in the real world, like the progression of the Matrix world after what Neo did seems like it would be a thing of humans and machines working together, but then you have some humans that didn't want to leave the Matrix, and maybe they work with other machines. So now it's not so cut and dry of just humans versus machines. Now it's humans and machines versus humans and machines, and I think that dynamic is interesting. As far as like his character goes, I have no idea why they kept calling him Morpheus, because he was absolutely not Morpheus. He didn't have Morpheus's traits. He was a brown guy, sure, but he did not have Morpheus's personality. He was running around swagging it up, wearing a bright yellow suit, like having a good old time, shaking around and everything. And the actual Morpheus, like, passed away in the real world after like the events of like all these years passing. So I don't understand why this character had the name of Morpheus when there was nothing about him that ended up being Morpheus.
Yeah, I actually, that was one of the first things I said while I was watching the movie, and was the first thing I wrote down. Is actually one of the biggest problems that I had as well, because my thinking is like, okay, if you're not gonna have the OG Morpheus in the movie, fine, like we get it, people move on. We didn't have Hugo Weaving either, so it makes sense. Like time has passed by, these actors are older, we can't always have them. So, and I think we've talked about before in other shows, like just do a recast.
Yeah.
But in this case, though, in this world, the way that the world was built, a recast doesn't make sense, and a recast isn't necessary, especially with this character being an AI. It could be anybody. Why does it have to be Morpheus? And then if it's going to be Morpheus, why do you have this half-baked guy be not the actor, but like the character just feels really half-baked because he doesn't seem like Morpheus at all. And he like tries to kind of talk like him a little bit, but only sometimes, and it's just really weird and off-putting because it's like why do you have to do like it's like you're trying too hard, but you're not succeeding very well. So it just feels really weird.
I, I 100% agree. Because we are coming up on time, we'll go ahead and cut this. But before I do, I want to ask you: is there any last minute thoughts that you had that you wanted to get out for the YouTube segment of this?
No, but we can talk more about other stuff after this.
Okay. So yeah, guys, that's what we thought. Our quick thoughts, 31 minutes of the Matrix Resurrections. We'll continue talking on our Twitch channel. So if you guys ever want to see us like continue these conversations, check out our Twitch at twitch.tv/C3Films. But what do you guys think about the Matrix Resurrections? We went in on it, but I'm sure there are people out there that liked it. Were you one of those people? If you did like it, honestly, like no hate. I really would like to know what about it that you like. So feel free to leave a comment below. Let us know. And while you're down there, if you give us a like, share, and subscribe. Even if you don't, though, I have been Chris, and this has been
Cheryl, and we'll see you all next time.